Thank you, everybody, for joining me in the Norway Historical. I appreciate Anne and Sue and Charles for having me. I should warn you right away, I never thought when I retired from insurance 5 years ago that public speaking would be part of my retirement, but I do have an interest in local history, and I do have a connection to the founding of Norway Country Club, and I also should warn you that if anybody came expecting to hear about a bunch of golfers and tournaments and prizes and low scores, that's not the program tonight. This is about the founding of Norway Country Club, which is not really a golfing story, it's a community story as far as I'm concerned. Some of you may have heard me speak a few years ago about the Norway Shoe Factory, which was founded in 1872, and they went out and raised money, $25 a share stock, not because they thought they could get any return from it, but purely to bring jobs for their friends and neighbors to the area. And that's really what the motivation was in Norway Country Club. Norway Country Club went out in 1929. There was a few men that got together and decided that Country Club would be a great economic engine for the community. And I think here we are 90 years later, I think that's still the case. We've had a lot of people move to Norway because we have a golf course, because we have a lake. So either here for the summer or decide to retire here later on. They like our community, and I think, again, it's not just about a bunch of golfers, it's helping the community. And what I'm going to refer to today, it's kind of dog-eared, but this is the original binder that has all the minutes of the original meetings of Norway Country Club going back to 1929, including a list of the original stockholders. They filed with the state of Maine in April of 1929. And then they finally had their first stockholders meeting, where they announced it in November of 1929, and had their first stockholders meeting and first directors meeting subsequently in December of 1929. Now, I'm sure all of you, if you think about history, what happened in the meantime in October of crash, and then recession started, and it's amazing to me that all those folks who put up, it was $50 a share back then, $50 still followed through, and these weren't the people that bought the shares. You can see the original list is right here, the original shareholders. There's a Stephen Burdine on there, for instance. His dad was, I talked to his son recently, who's still living in Washington, D.C. His dad was 28 years old and working in the shoe factory in 1929, and had never played around golf in his life, and never did subsequently, but he did it purely, he thought, to help the community, from what I understand. There's other examples there too. Shirley Huff's father, Leon Newcomb, bought a share in 1950. And I don't know that he never played any golf, did he?
No.
Shirley? No.
We called it pasture pool.
Maybe he had the foresight to know that it was a pasture pool. The land that you'll see here from the book that Reverend Don McAllister put out, that the land the country club sits on was one of the original settled lots in the town of Norway. A fellow named Hobbs, Jeremiah Hobbs, first settled there in 1786, believe it or not. He put up a log cabin there in 1786 and cleared the land, and he subsequently, his son Jer the younger lived there as well, and then you'll see a Mills there, and he's actually married the granddaughter of Jeremiah Hobbs. It came down through several owners until a man named Bartlett was running a dairy farm there in the 20s. And that's who Norway Home Building Association purchased the land from, a fellow who had run a dairy farm. Does anybody, the original road where it is now is not where the original road came up to the clubhouse? Does anybody here know where the original road was?
Came straight up from Country Club Road, right towards the house.
There you go, yes. And again, if anybody knows their local history, you would know that the reason it came up from what's now Country Club Road, it used to be County Road, was that was the main road from Portland to Bethel as you went up over Pikes Hill and along Country Club Road to Morrill Road to the Center Road and up over Patch Mountain into Bethel. There was no such thing as the Waterford Road originally. If you wanted to go where I live in Jaeger Hobbs Pond, you went to Norway Center and came around the pond and up into Jaeger. So that's why the road came from Country Club Road up to the clubhouse. So one of their major expenses was in the 1930s, they closed that road and built the new road from off the what we know now as the Waterford Road. Some of you may remember that the original, the club, what we call a clubhouse now, was the farmhouse for this dairy farm. And there was a detached barn at the time. It came when they purchased the property in 1929. The barn was still there, and that was part of the expense, was to convert the the farmhouse into a clubhouse. And the barn they used, that was your maintenance shed where you kept the maintenance equipment. And it was also what's known as the caddy's locker. When they started in 1929, there was no such thing as carts. So what did you do? Instead of buying a cart, you hired a caddy when you went out to play golf. And caddy would carry your bags around for, I've been told, 25 cents for 9 holes. And in addition, another 5 cents went to what they call the caddy master. It was in the minutes of the meeting that a fellow named Robert Goodwin was the first caddy master of Norway Country Club. And my father didn't tell me this, but some of you may remember Herman Card, who was very aptly named. Sandy, who worked with me, knew Herman very well. Herman's first job was as a caddy at Norway Country Club, believe it or not. He talked to me many times about caddying at Norway Country Club. I guess Herman was sort of slight and short fellow, and I guess he was slight and small when he went to apply for a job at Norway Country Club. But according to him, they still hired him and said, "We'll try you out if you can carry a bag or 2 for 9 holes. Maybe your team will keep you on," and which they did. But we also did tell me the story of going on strike one morning. Caddy master, and if you know Herman, maybe he probably was behind it all. So they went on strike, and I understand that a few crab apples was thrown. The caddy master was my father. Then they all went back to work and carried golf bags the rest of the day. Ben Tucker and Lynn Partridge, who you may know. Ben Tucker's the one that's living in Norway now, tells me that his dad and Lynn used to hitchhike up there every morning and caddy and get paid 35 cents by then, I guess. Caddy 9 holes. Then they might play a round or two before they went back, and then they hitchhiked back to town. And Ben Current tells me that his father was 13 years old when he went up caddying, and Herman was probably about the same age too. Herman told me this was his start in life. Every morning when he went up, you presented your hands to the caddy master, make sure that your fingernails were clean. And you look behind the ears, make sure. Herman always told me he was very grateful that because it gave him his start in life, dealing with the public. As you can imagine, when they first went up there, this had been a dairy farm. And if you walk a dairy farm, you know the ground is fairly uneven, and from the cows walking on it. So to convert, it had been a dairy farm on the Waterford Road into a golf course within a short amount of time was no small undertaking. To even it out, but there's an article, I found some articles in the Advertiser that they actually went to work in the fall of 1929, clearing land, harrowing the fairways. So it says in there, they thought they could open up 7 holes by July of the following year, 1930. And I guess that's about what happened. There's also notes in the book here about sticking sticks of dynamite into rocks that were in the fairway and blowing up the rocks before they could damage the mowing equipment. And there's also something that Fairway, those of you who are members know that we used to have a spring cleanup every spring. We go up and rake leaves and pick up branches. Well, 1932, they said, anybody that comes up, please bring buckets with you. And whoever can find the most rocks on the top of the and win a prize after cleanup. So, as you know, one thing we grow very well in Maine is rocks.
Incentive.
And what?
Incentive.
Incentive, yes. I was very surprised. This is a book. They had, even in 1930, which was the first year they were open, they had what's called a carnival. And I couldn't believe the amount of money they made at this carnival. Maybe some other folks that were.
I remember going to it.
Do you remember going
to it?
Oh,
yeah.
You must be old.
She was only like 1 or 2. This article here says, please come to the 1930 carnival and see fortune tellers, snake charmers.
Snake charmers.
Is that what you remember, Ann?
They had a slot machine.
A slot machine.
In what is now kind of the entrance to the new dining room in that area there. And I was about 10 years old, and my parents let me put money in the slot machine, and I learned my lesson real fast. Never did it again.
I talked to my aunt, Janet Carrick, about that. That's the main thing she remembers about that.
Was the slot machine?
Slot machine.
Good lessons.
I guess they thought, or they're way at the other end of town, we could go up there and party and have dances. And, they talked about this carnival, they had a dance, and dancing out on the big porch. So again, this isn't just about a bunch of golfers, this is about heavy-duty partiers, I guess.
So how much money did they make?
1945, they made $1,200. They grossed $1,200, and they netted $800, I think. That was like half their budget for the year. Well, again, it's community members going up and supporting this too. It's not just, from what I understand, I mentioned this Norway Home Building Association. The country club, they raised the $50,000 by sending stock. But then after a few years, they wanted to pay off the building association. And so for $14,500, they bought the property, believe it or not, in 1932. Wow. And at that point, they had a bond for deed to buy it. And then 2 years later, believe it or not, they went out and sold bonds so they could bring water to the country club, and so they could pay off the original owners. So we think that's a pretty good deal, $14,500 today. But in the late 20s, farmhouses were a dime a dozen. Everybody was moving off the farms and in town where the jobs were. And then subsequently, I read in there too that they sold subscriptions when they went out to build a new road. They also raised money then as well. You'll notice here too that they had a little trouble finding water up at the Norway Country Club. I don't know how they got water for the cows, because anybody who runs a farm knows you need a lot of water. But supposedly they drilled down to below the level of the bottom of Lake Tennessee-Wassee. It still didn't find water. So probably some of you members now know how we got water. It wasn't from drilling for a well. It was. So we get it from Hobbs. We pump it all the way up from Hobbs Pond. And many years. All right, a little bit about the people. The first pro of Norway Country Club was a man named George Dunn. He was there till 1933, and then I guess they felt they couldn't afford him, so they went out and hired a young fellow who was just starting out, who would work for a lot less and could live upstairs above the clubhouse, by the name of Eddie Bush. And this is a golfing story. Eddie Bush worked for Norway Country Club for 5 years. From there he continually got promoted. He worked in Salem, Massachusetts for a while and Illinois for a while, but the last 16 years that he worked, he was pro at the Doral Country Club in Miami, Florida, which many of you know, Jackie Gleason always promoted the Norway Country, the Doral Country Club. They still have a pro golf tour stop there every year, so he really did very well for himself, and his roots were here in Norway, Maine. So when we have our 50th anniversary, of course, they wrote to Mr. Bush and said, would you like to come join us for our 50th anniversary? His exact words were, Norway's where I got my start. I wouldn't miss it for the world. You tell me what date it is, and I will be there. And he was. So he was there. And this picture over here, you'll see Eddie Bush and a lot of the other past professionals at the golf course and heirs of the original stockholders or past presidents of the club, including Jim Browning was a fellow that followed Eddie, and he was very famous in golf circles too. I understand he won the main Open 8 different times before he moved on to a Western Massachusetts golf club. And in that photo, our pro for 39 years in, that Dave Mazzeo was pro.
I think so, I don't remember.
Something like that, yeah. So, most recently, Dave Mazzeo was our pro and made us a lot of friends for 39 years. Another fellow that went on to bigger and better things, Harold Wiley, was pro at Norway Country Club for a few years as well. And then he found the car business was a little more lucrative than the golf course. And he owned Wiley Pontiac and did very well for himself. But he always had a great fondness for Norway. And so when his first wife died and he got married again, his wedding was at Norway Country Club.
He started as a caddy there, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he started as a caddy, just like Wynn and then Tucker and my dad. You know? That's right. In fact, all the Wiley brothers were probably, there was 7 Wiley brothers who lived at Norway Lake. Pat will tell you, they're neighbors of hers. And they all at one point or other were very involved in Norway Country. Part of the, I should have mentioned, I don't want to jump around too much, but one of the attractions for the carnival was that they raffle off a car every year, as I understand it. The club actually bought the car and then sold chances for 35 cents each or 3 for $1 for a car. This was 1930, and when you could buy a car for a little less than you can today. One of the other, we can go, I won't take too much time, but I could go through the original directors and tell you about the original directors. But Hugh Pendexter, the famous author, he was an original stockholder in Norway Country Club. But as I understand it, he never played around in golf either. His wife played, so that's why he actually became a director too, even though he didn't play golf. There also was tennis courts up there at one time. I don't know what happened to tennis, but there was a tennis committee and tennis courts at one time. You could join as a tennis member, you could join as a golf member, you could join as a house member, I guess. People like to socialize. I will say it wasn't always easy. There's a couple of years where they actually got loans from the Norway Board of Trade so they could keep paying the payroll. According to 1944, they only made half of what they spent, so they had to go out and get a loan from the Norway Board of Trade. And I guess the reasoning was that the club brought a lot of people into town and generated money for all the merchants and the restaurant owners, and Norway Board of Trade wanted to help them out. All right, back to today. I warned Ann that I would do a little advertisement for our 90th anniversary. We have a celebration coming up the second week in July, and most of the events are open to the public. You don't have to be a member. We have tickets. I don't have them here today, but you can go up to the clubhouse and you can buy tickets to the dinner dance on Saturday night for food and music. some point, I mentioned that Ben Tucker, he's gonna, that Saturday afternoon, he's gonna run a recording where his father interviewed Eddie Bush about his experiences at Norway Country Club. And if you don't get enough history tonight, there you go. A lot of people have a misconception that the country club is just for members. Well, it's not. Our dining room is open to the public, and you're all certainly welcome to. We hope you will come up and enjoy the nice view and have a good meal. Joel Kane is our current dining room manager. Some of you may remember him from the Trolley House, and from what I hear, everybody
And
likes
Jackie
his.
Bennett is
And
doing
Jack-
it with him.
And Jackie Bennett is doing it with him as well. Our new pro this year is a fellow named Ben Goodall. Some of you may know his dad, who runs a business down the street here, but he's a young fellow with a lot of energy, and he's been a coach in the school district, so hopefully he'll bring some. And I mentioned Dave DeZeo working there 39 years. Our superintendent of the golf course, who works untold number of hours, is a fellow by the name of Robert Campbell. He's been there over 40 years, and from my understanding, he's never had another job except for working for Norway Country. He started out there in summers and when he was in school, and he's liked it so much he's stayed there since. We hope he's there for many more years. And I should mention too, my longtime associate Sandra Porter is sitting in the front row here. I thought she came to heckle me, but Sandy worked for my father and I in Proctor for 51 years. And she's retiring this year, July, after the 51 years. She was the engine of our insurance, local business for many, many years. And everybody give her a hand. Back to the golf course. I know Miss DeLay in the back there has a memory she wanted to share with us at one time.
Just a couple of them. My dad was up there. I think he actually caddied. I don't know if he was actually one of the original ones, but two things particularly. One, I was fortunate enough many years ago to get a hole-in-one on number 6, and I was so excited. And by this time, Dad had stopped playing golf, so my husband and I went and got a 6-pack of Guinness, good Irishman. And I took it just so Dad would celebrate with me. He was mad as could be because he never got a home run. The other thing that I learned is it never rains on the golf course. Because every time Dad would be at the course and it might sprinkle or it might rain, Mother would say, well, Dad will be home soon. Well, of course he didn't. If you remember, there was a 1912. So when he finally would get home, Mother would say, well, Dennis, it rained. And he'd say, Mother, you know it never rains on golf.
When Al Tucker saw him as a caddy, they didn't involve your uncle. Getting him with the golf ball.
Oh, yes, yeah. The family story is that our uncle, our youngest uncle, Barney, was a caddy there and actually got hit in the temple. And this was Tucker telling the story, and quite hard. And of course, he always said, and he was never right again.
Stuart, who were the original directors? Do you have any record of that?
I sure do. I should know the first president too, because he's got my name. Bob McCrady's dad was the first clerk of the
Okay.
treasurer's name was a man named DeCoster, who was postmaster at Norway Stand, and his wife Maud DeCoster was a longtime dining room manager, and I understand very well thought of, and not just for food, but for community. I've got actually here a brochure. See, this was, they must have put this out in 1930, because it, come play Norway Country Club, only $1 for $1.50 a day.
Wow.
Except July and August when it went up to all $2. Play all you want. Charles Cummings was the second vice president, another good friend of my grandfather. The original directors, Robert Seavey, George Curtis, who was the president of Norway Savings Bank at the time, Z.L. Merchant, of course, ran Merchant Store, Steve Jellerson, who, I don't know if you remember, Carol Jellison, they ran the shoe factory. He and my grandfather and Charlie Cummings were really the three moving, as I understand it, the three moving force. George Hill ran a car dealership.
Yeah.
J.E. Shepard, who is Jancy Partridge's grandfather, ran Shepard's Camps. Kenneth Inslee, none of you probably remember him, but he ran the Lakeside Inn up on Crockett Ridge, which is where Gordon Smith's house is. So you see some of these people here, it wasn't their golfers, they were trying to help not just their own self, but help the community and bring people into the area. There's an Aldo French on here, and as I understand it, his son still holds share number 2 in Norway Country Club.
So Stuart, those were the original directors, but you
Well,
have a
directors
list.
not, well, yeah.
Then are those the people that bought shares?
That's how it works. You go out and sell shares and have stockholders, and the stockholders have a meeting and they elect who the first directors and officers are going to be.
So there's quite a long list then of people who bought the shares.
Enough so they could raise $50,000.
Wow, that's amazing.
Some more than others. I mean, what everybody could afford. $50 to Steve Burdine was probably
3 weeks pay.
3 weeks pay.
Yeah.
Maybe $200 to the president of Norway Savings Bank was probably equivalent.
Who owns it now?
Pardon?
Who owns it now?
The stockholders.
Oh, they're still stock.
Still run by the stockholders. Still, Norway Country Club is owned by the stockholders. And relatives of the original stockholders in some cases, like Shirley Newcomb Hoff, Stuart Goodwin.
How many stockholders are there now?
About the same number.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can find somebody who's willing to sell your share. You can buy a share for about $75. That's the going rate right now if you'd like to. So go out and play golf and know that you own the course. $75 you can play.
Does it improve your game?
Absolutely.
Good answer.
When was the course finished, so it was 9 holes?
That's a good question, Leo. Again, they were playing golf and they were having this first carnival up there in August of 1930. And they were talking about having 7 holes open. So it wasn't too long after that. I guess if you didn't mind going up and throwing the rocks off the fairway. It was amazing. It talks in this article here about how quickly they were able to get it all done. They didn't start till the fall of '29, and then two things. George Dunn, who was supervising it, they said did a terrific job. Second, I guess the weather was with them. It certainly wasn't like the weather we had this year.
Yeah.
Early winter and late spring. It must have been just the opposite, because you can imagine changing again this uneven cow pasture into a golf course within a year and have 7 holes open.
Which 2 holes do you think were the last 2 to be built?
Well, you probably played more than I have, Paul. But
Years ago, I'm guessing 1 and 2, but I don't know.
well, I don't think they were probably playing off the first tee, but maybe 1 and 2. Yeah.
Stuart, actually, I caddied up there when I was a kid right after World War II. And the first
You
hole...
don't look old enough, Paul.
Yeah, I know. Was there. And that was a caddy, as you said, it was a caddy shack. But the first tee was out behind the barn. I don't know.
Well, the barn was to the right of, I understand it was to the right of the
Yeah, right, as you came up,
clubhouse.
it was right out.
And so
Yeah.
first tee would have been.
But it wasn't up in the...
Well, it wasn't up.
on the hill where it was,
Well, that made it an answer to Paul's question.
Yeah,
you know.
it was more or less where the women's tee is now, on the first. I got $1 for carrying it. There was a man from Portland, I carried his bag from 9 holes. He gave me a silver $1 and bought me a bottle of Royal Crown Cold. And I had that silver $1 until, I guess maybe my junior year in high school, when I had to just go to a Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin movie.
Only had a hot day. Well, yeah, I should mention, if you really want to make some money, you could carry 2 bags instead of 1, and doubles. And then if you did a really good job, people like that would tip you a bit money. So it wasn't just, I shouldn't cry poverty for these poor caddies. They had an opportunity to make a little more money.
Who designed the course?
My excuse is my brain doesn't, the Rolodex in my brain doesn't turn around fast enough. I should know who it is. He's a very relatively famous golf pro, I think. Same one that designed Poland Spring, if I'm correct. It wasn't Robert Jones, Grant Jones.
Donald Ross.
Donald Ross, yes, Donald Ross.
Donald Ross did it? Seriously?
That's
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he did the course in Lovell, you know.
And he did Poland Spring.
All right.
You might have done that, Mike.
You're going to question all the other things I've told you. I'll look that up, and if anybody wants to ask me.
So who are some of the famous people that might have played the course? Something tells me Lawson Little played there at one time. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, and I found in some of the material, Lynn Partridge's letter there, there's a, okay, I should mention this. We have some memorabilia, and one is a scrapbook that Lynn Partridge put together in 1979 when we had the 50th anniversary that all these pros came back to. And according to Wynn in there, Gene Sarazen played there in an exhibition in 1931.
Wow.
They invited Gene Sarazen to come to the 50th because he was living in New Hampshire.
And Stuart Goodwin. Yeah, Rudy.
Well, I did see there that Rudy Valley membership, but that was like an honorary membership. He was living in Lovell, and I think they sent it to him in hopes that he might come over and draw a crowd or something. But I don't know that Rudy Valley ever paid his $25, $50 dues for the year, but that may have been an honorary membership.
Does Stephen King come over to play the court?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do I remember correctly that John Durr and his wife were members at Norway? And do you know that name?
John Doerr had a house in Lovell, and
Yeah.
he was a client of ours at the insurance
Yeah,
agency.
he was a member of both Lake Keyser and here.
Was he?
And he was for many years, he was the CBS announcer on the 16th hole of the Masters every year.
I think his wife played with Eddie Hopper.
He was a very nice man. I met him on a couple of occasions. Very, I guess you'd say, nice Southern gentleman.
My parents told me that one time years ago, if you were teeing off the second hole, there's some trees along the right there, and you'll notice that the first part, one and
You mean
two
the
of
left
them
or
are
the
just
right?
stumps. Like,
All right.
yeah, to the right of the tee box. Well, my parents told me that one time somebody who lived on the lake, and I don't, if they told me the name, I wouldn't say it anyway, but he got mad because every time he sliced his ball, he went into that tree, and he came up one morning and cut the tree down. And there is just a stump there, so the story is believable now.
Since you're telling stories, I'll tell one more story. That barn that was there, evidently was open on both ends. I guess few people, after a couple of drinks at the Wednesday night scramble, they'd go out and see if they could hit a golf ball through. Again, we won't name any names.
I have a story. The first hole is unique because it's the elevated tee and everything. And we have 4 boys, and you know, I would take them up there, and we'd go golfing up there, and I think that was when Dave was still there. And one day, there were, I think 8 of us, so 2 foursomes. And I had, I think our 14 and 12-year-old son driving one cart. The 14-year-old was, you know, a little bit shaky at times. But anyway, they went up, the boys went up to the tee to be the first foursome, and I'm sitting down there in the parking lot next to the starter, and they tee off, and all of a sudden, you know, a golf cart comes down the hill and gets split. And I'm sitting there next to the starter, and I'm saying, oh geez, you know, these kids are going to get us kicked off, never to be able to play this course again. And sure enough, they come down there and they're going like mad, and I'm thinking I'm going to kill that kid when he gets down here, if he's not already dead when he gets down. And they get right down by the parking lot, and my one son bails out. You know, just to stop, drop, and roll right out of the cart. And the other one who was driving, he rides it down into the open area there and gets it stopped. And like I said, I'm getting ready to kill him. Well, come to find out, the brakes failed on the car. And it was just, he stuck with it and rode it out, and figuring that, well, maybe I was going to kill him, but there was a reason for it. So, long story short, we still get to play the course now. Was there ever any discussion about expanding it to 18 holes?
Yeah, I didn't get into that, but yes, we looked into it, and in fact, in the back there, you'll see a survey of the land in Norway Country Club with all the heights and levels and the wetlands, and there is room, as I understand it, over to the left that the country club owns that you could use, but it's very steep and rocky, and there's a wetlands at the bottom. And after going through all the surveys and having Firm up in Livermore look it all over, they said, yes, you can have 18 holes there, but this was 30 years ago. It was going to cost you at least $1 million to do it. And today, 30 years later, you know, that $1 million is probably $3 million.
Barely support the one we have, right?
And we have trouble even today managing our budget. You're right. And when years like this, beyond our control, when it's cold and rainy in the spring and rains on the weekends, it's tough to make the payroll. we're still there. And again, I think it's a great community asset and continues to be, whether you're a golfer or not. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
coming.
you.